Hello, I'm Nobby Clark. Welcome to my workshop. A very cold workshop this morning. I had to put a much heavier coat on today. I'm only an amateur model engineer and workshop engineer. I've no background in engineering at all. Everything I've learned, I've taught myself in the past sort of 6-7 years, basically from watching YouTube videos and reading books and magazines on engineering to find all the various techniques required. But I just wanted to share some of my thoughts on using taps and dies on a lathe. When you're using a die, the method often used is to use a die holder and then use the quill of the tailstock to push the die holder against the work. That does work very well if you're very careful. You will get a nice straight cut on the material. But the ideal way is to use something like this, a tailstock die holder. I mean, you can buy these ready-made, but of course making one yourself, of course, in itself is an interesting project. I made this a few years ago. It was the first set of taps and dies I bought was a metric set where all the dies were 25mm dies. So I made this with a 25mm whole board in here with the various grub screws to hold the die in place, and this runs on a 1/2 inch rather shaft, which could be mounted into the tailstock drill chuck, and then of course this can then be run into the work while you're rotating the lathe chuck round. I've made some sort of a knurled area here so I can grip this as I'm working with it. Later on, I did get some dies in and taps as well in imperial sizes, and a lot of the dies were 13/16 sizes. Well, rather than make another one of these, it's a simple matter of just machining this end to take the smaller dies, and obviously just use this the opposite way around. It works perfectly. I'm quite pleased with the results. I mean, this gets a huge amount of use on my lathe. The other problem is really with tapping holes on the lathe as well. The normal method generally is to sort of mount the tap into a tailstock drill chuck. The problem is that taps are sort of hardened steel, and when you've tapped so far into the material, the taps spin around inside the drill chuck. This just won't grip firmly against the hardened material. Then you need to sort of release the drill chuck, move this back, and then use a tap holder of some description to complete the work. I recently saw a video from Mr. Pete, or Tubal Cane, where he showed an item like this. This also fits onto the 1/2 inch shaft. This part's just made out of aluminium, and like the die holder, it's knurled here to give you a gripped area. And mounted into the front, I've used part of an Eclipse tap holder. Just remove the Tommy bar and the little locking screw. This then pushes into the holder here, is just held in place with a grub screw or set screw, and then you can mount your taps in here. The advantage with this is that you're mounting onto these 4 flats on the back of the tap, and that grips all 4 flats, so that when you're tapping, the tap is not going to revolve. Obviously you've got to be sort of cautious and use your normal method of tapping, so you don't, the small tap, you don't break the tap. But I only made this I guess a couple of weeks ago, and when I use it all the time now, it works very, very well indeed. It's such a useful item. Mr. P did say that in the States you can buy a ready-made version of this made by Shars, and he actually showed one of these. But you know, why buy something like that when you've got all the tools in your workshop? And again, it's an interesting project to make. The other thing about sort of tapping material away from the lathe is always getting the tap square to the material, so that you don't run the tap in at a slight angle. I mean, once the taps started to cut, you can never really re-square it up against the material again. So the recommended method usually is to run the tap in slightly and then look down on the tap in both directions to make sure it is absolutely square, or use a little set square on the side of it to make sure you're tapping square into the material. Another method of doing this is to make yourself a tapping jig. The one I originally made was something I saw on a video from Steve Jordan. He adapted I think probably the same time, a Black & Decker drill stand. He made his by cutting a circular piece of metal to go in here, with a hole drilled in the centre, so you could have a shaft running through it with the drill chuck at the bottom, and then on the top use a tap holder as a handle to revolve round to run the shaft through here down into the material. I made mine differently. I just took this front part off and mounted a piece of square aluminium across here, and then I just drilled the hole through that piece of material, again running a shaft through with a drill chuck on the end, and it worked very well. I used this for quite a long time. It's quite a big device, but it does work. But then watching videos on YouTube, I came across a review on a product called a portable drill guide, and it's made by a company called Rockler. I think this is an American company that make various tools, and the device was basically like this. The idea of this device is that you mount your drill in the chuck here, and you mount your battery drill on the end, and then this can be held against a wall or ceiling or floor, and then you can run the drill into the material, and you will get this absolutely square perpendicular to whatever you're drilling. I looked at that video and I thought, well, I could use a device like that and adapt it to use as a tapping guide. Now the Rockler version of this is actually very, very expensive, and I guess probably would need to be ordered from America, but a search on our friend's eBay, I came up with this device, I mean, unlike the Rockler one where the base and this part I think are all made out of die-cast aluminium, this is just plastic. The kit of bits, when you get it, it's all flat packed in a box, you just put it all together. It does have a spring mounted on here, so that when you're using it for drilling, you're pushing against the spring, running the drill into the wall or whatever. I removed the spring because I found for this particular project that didn't really work, and then obviously in place of where the power drill would normally go, I just used the middle section of a tap holder. I just removed the two bars from each side and put a little screw in here and a locking screw here, so that I could lock that onto this shaft at the back. Then you simply mount your taps into here and your workpiece on the base, and then just lower that very carefully onto the pre-drilled hole, and then run your tap into the material. You can put a little bit of pressure on there if you need to, but generally once the tap has started, it will draw itself quite nicely into the material. If I'm tapping very small parts, I've got this tiny vise, which I can mount sort of tiny parts on here, and then just put that onto the base, and then use that to tap into. I mounted this onto a piece of wood because you can't mount this really into the bench vise, because being plastic it will just squeeze it in, and there's not really enough room to clamp that onto the bench. So having a piece of wood on here, I can either put that in the vise or clamp it down to the bench, just to hold it in place while I'm working. So well, hopefully a sort of an interesting item for you. I mean, this cost, I bought this some time back, and it literally cost me just a little under £10. So it was you know, quite good really, considering that it comes with the drill chuck. I guess buying well, that's a Chinese made drill chuck, but buying one of these on its own would be quite expensive. That's got a capacity from 1.5 to 10 millimeters, so it will take quite a range of different tap sizes. But no, I hope you found that interesting, and again, thank you very much for joining me in the workshop today. I'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone that subscribed to my channel. I'm very grateful. The numbers are steadily going up, much to my surprise, and also thank you for the nice comments and advice that you're giving me. Because I do stress that I'm not making these videos really from the point of view of me being an expert, but it's, as with lots of other videos I watch on YouTube, it's very nice that other people share their knowledge and experience, and that's the way we all learn. It's a wonderful community. Well, anyway, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to have another video for you very soon. Bye bye for now.